In this episode, Robert Plant, Lone Star, and Van Halen.
June 1983. A certain Mr. Robert Plant was due to appear on the then flagship UK music programme called The Tube. Now, I was due to go out that night, but I got a video recorder, or I had access to a video recorder, let's be honest about it. One of those old-fashioned ones where you push the buttons down and it made an almighty racket when it finished. So anyway, I managed to persuade my dad to let me use his video recorder to record Robert Plant, who was going to be on the Tube that Friday night. And I went out. Came back all eagerly anticipating, waiting to see what Robert Plant was going to be like live with his band, having just recorded the second solo album, Principle of Moments. And put the video on, get to the bit where it's supposed to start, and Jules Holland comes on and says, well, due to circumstances beyond our control, Robert Plant will not be performing tonight. And that was that. Now, in those days of no internet, we had to wait till the following Thursday to find out what was going on when the music papers came out. And that was when we found out that Robert Plant, or Robert Plant's people, probably Robert Plant himself, decided that the performance wasn't good enough and they didn't want it to be put out. So they managed to get it stopped. But they had to pay £7,000, which was a few bob in 1983, to cover the costs of it being recorded for nothing. Anyway, a few weeks later, went down the old record fair, and what do I see in one of the boxes? This, Robert Plant, just to know what he's doing live at the Tube. And I thought, let's get a copy of that and see what it's like. Now don't forget, we've been told on this point that it had been pulled because it wasn't all that brilliant, but you're still interested, aren't you? So a bit of a listen. Now, I can tell you, I'll play this again today. It's not that bad. Robert Plant sounds fine. The band, yeah, they might be a little bit out of sync. They might be a little bit slow in places, a little bit fast in places. They might be missing a few bits out and doing a few bits twice. But think of it, it's a band that's not really a band. They're all doing all the things, aren't they, most of the time? And they've come together for Robert Plant to want to just probably getting together about to start rehearsing and all that sort of stuff. So it's bound to sound a little bit rough around the edges, if you like. But it's a nice thing to have. It's a nice record of what was going on at the time. As I've said before, whether I was big log in the mood, see if I was burning down one side, and a couple of numbers to guess. There was a big long list of the tracks that are available on the internet. You want to see what the full list was. One or two of the tracks they played twice. Not sure whether the versions on here are the first versions or the second versions. But what I do know is that it's just been re-released on one of those dodgy CDs where they're getting around the copyright thing by sort of claiming it to be an FM broadcast and all that sort of stuff. And it's available now. I think it's called Robert Plant FM Broadcast or Robert Plant TV Broadcast 83 or something. And it's got the full set on there. Don't know what the sound quality of that is like, whether it's the same source as this. All it says is it's from a cassette that somebody gave the CD company to use. So maybe somebody was at the gig. Could be exactly the same source as this for all I know. But what I will tell you is, if you see one of these knocking about, the sound quality on it, it's not that bad. I told you to sort of tweak your volumes up a little bit and everything. It's listenable. All the instruments and the singing are the right sort of level and everything. And it's okay. And it's a nice thick bit of vinyl on the Spit at Journalists label. And it's a nice glossy cover. And if you're a Robert Plant collector, it's well worth having if you can find a copy of this. So, Robert Plant and his band live at the Tube. Or should that be cancelled live at the Tube?
The Man in the Attic.
Hi there, people in Custard Land. It's the Man in the Attic, except I'm taking a little break from the attic and I'm man in the bedroom. I'm just going to do this before I put off to sleep for the night. And what I'm looking at this evening is an album from 1976. A good year, actually, for me. I saw some good bands that year, and I first ran into this band as a support act. They were opening at the Hammersmith Odeon for Ted Nugent, and this was in September 1976, about a week earlier. I'd been to see Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, and then came along to see Ted. I probably wouldn't go and see him these days, but he did make a couple of really terrific albums back there in the 70s. And this band were another band signed to Epic CBS. This band were on CBS while Ted was on the Epic label, same company really. And it was this band, Lone Star. Some of you might be familiar with them, some of you may not. They made, as far as I'm aware, and I'm quite happy to be proven wrong, I haven't researched it, but as far as I'm aware, they only made 2 studio albums. That was this one, which is plainly called Lone Star, and a follow-up called Firing on All Six. And in between times, they swapped lead vocalists. The lineup on this album is there's the guys on the back there. It's Rick Worsnop on keyboards, Kenny Driscoll on vocals, Dixie Lee on drums, Tony Smith on guitar and backing vocals, Paul Chapman, who went on to be with UFO, on guitar, where he was nicknamed Tonka, I believe due to his propensity for hard drugs, and a bass player called Peter Hurley, terrific bass player, actually, really good tone. I don't know what any of these members, if they're all still alive, are doing these days. Paul Chapman, we know, went on to probably bigger things with UFO and made some great albums with them. But the other guys, I really don't know. As I say, Kenny Driscoll, the singer, left after this first album. And I don't know why, because he had a terrific voice, but I do recall reading somewhere that maybe he and another member that they hailed from Wales, I think most of these guys, and they didn't really like going outside of Wales, so it kind of limited their possibilities somewhat. But yes, a good album, and it's produced by a big name producer, Roy Thomas Baker, more famous for his work with Queen, of course. Yeah, so it's got a great sound. It's really well produced. And as I say, when I saw them opening for Ted, they had a really good sound, which, you know, back in the day was unusual for support acts. Normally, sound checks would be rushed. But this band were obviously given a really even break by the sound guys, and had a great sound, and I was really impressed by them. So check the album out, and yeah, I'm glad I did. It opens up with a terrific long kind of proggy version of She Said She Said by the Beatles. Now it weighs in at 8 minutes 30, and that's quite long. She Said She Said by the Beatles is probably 2 to 2 minutes 30. But this one, it starts off rocking and then comes down a notch, and then there's lots of nice builds and lows and highs, lots of dynamics. Really, really terrific version of it. You know, much the same as Joe Cocker did with Little Help from My Friends. Totally unrecognisable from the original, and not a bad thing for it. Followed up by track 2 on side 1 called Lonely Soldier, which is another really, really good rock tune. I suppose there's likenesses with bands like Styx and people like that who were all making their way through at the time. And it ends side 1 with a good rocker called Flying in the Reel. As I said, produced by Roy Thomas Baker. The drum sounds really good on this, and quite reminiscent of Roger Taylor's sound with Queen. You know, really nice and fat. Side 2 opens with a track called Spaceships, which morphs in to the next track, A New Day. And then a really great track, A Million Stars. I really, really do like that one. That rocks nicely, and then side 2 ends with a more reflective, slow thing called Illusions. A nice bringing you down ending to the album. So yeah, as I say, they went on to make the second album called Firing on All Six, where Kenny Driscoll was replaced by a singer called John Sloman. Now, John Sloman also, after that, went on to make an album with Uriah Heep. He was with them for the album called Conquest. I did see them with Uriah Heep with John Sloman at the Lyceum. Probably 79, something like that. But sadly, this was a band where I think they had great potential and never really were quite as big as they should have been. Sad. But I think we've all come across acts like that, and we've all got an album, or probably several, where you think, how good were this band? And yet, why didn't they make it? When some of the old shite that gets through, you wonder. But there you go. Anyway, you can get this stuff on CD. I don't have it on CD. I just had the first 2 albums on vinyl. But I think you can get stuff by Lone Star, recorded for the BBC in concert, and maybe radio sessions. And that's worth having, because they really were, from my experience of them, just that once, they really were very, very good live. So worth checking out if you get a chance. And I'm sure all this stuff's on YouTube, and I'm sure Martin will sticking a link down here somewhere to some of it, and very good it is. It's an album I haven't played for a long time, but I think I might stick it on in the next day or two and remember how good this band were. And yeah, let's just say they should have been bigger. They deserve to be bigger, but life's like that sometimes. Anyway, this Lone Star, a recommendation again from the man in the attic, and I will see you again soon. So take it easy and have a great weekend.
Now, next album is an album which was released in March 1986. There had been some sort of hoo-ha beforehand, and it was eagerly anticipated by some, and some people vowed they were never going to listen to it, because one of the top bands of the day had the audacity to part company with their singer. Now, before I reveal who it is, and again, I always say this, but it's in the title, isn't it? So you know who it is already. It's Van Halen. Sorry for the potential reflection things. I know we've still got the original shrink wrap on the label there, so we'd like to keep that on there if we can, because it's been on there for goodness knows how long. Well, best part of 40 years nearly. Anyway, first of all, let me say, I was never a big Van Halen fan. Wasn't all that keen on all that fast diddly guitar. I like my guitar players like Blackmore and Bolan and Kossoff and people like that. And it was just all a little bit too whatever for me. Plus, I wasn't all that keen on David Lee Roth as a singer. He was a very good frontman with all his antics and all that sort of stuff, but I thought singing, I didn't think he was that good. Bizarrely, I was a fan of Sammy Hagar, who was a bloke brought in to replace him. When Sammy Hagar, I'd already got a chunk of his solo albums, which are great, some of those early solo albums, and also stuff with Montrose, which is brilliant as well. Now, so I was one of the few people who was actually looking forward to this. Was going to be the first Van Halen album I was actually going to buy, because I thought, well, it'll be great because it's got Sammy Hagar singing on it, and I'll probably be able to cope with the guitar stuff being just that little bit too whatever for me. Fine. And I did, and when it came out, it's a cracker. 5150 it's called. Came out on the 23rd of March 1986, and at the time it was 50-50, wasn't it? Sammy Hagar people liked it. Eddie Van Halen people who would have been happy with him playing anything liked it. The David Lee Roth fans got a bit of a sulk on and didn't want anything to do with it. Since then, it's sort of now finally been heralded as probably one of Van Halen's best albums, if not, for me, the best, really. It's got some great tracks in it. It's also got some more radio-friendly hooks on it. Sammy Hagar's got a brilliant voice for American sort of rock radio, hasn't he? In the track listing, which I sort of the record. I took the record out of the thing, so yeah, on this little ledge, so you can see. Of course, the rest of the band are still the same. Michael Anthony, Sammy Hagar, and Edward Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, of course. And what have we got anyway? It's called I Can't This Be Love, which was a massive sort of rock hit. You couldn't go anywhere in 1986 without hearing that. It was on the radio, it was coming out of people's cars, it was in every rock club you went in, and it was great. Love Walks In as well was another one. Good Enough, another track that was absolutely brilliant. If you're a Van Halen fan who didn't give this a go at the time, now's the time to give in and say, come on, I want to listen to it, because it's good. Yeah, it might sound a little bit dated in places with a sort of 80s sort of production and all that sort of stuff, but it still sounds great. It's a good listen. It's well worth getting hold of. Nice little package. You got the lyrics on the back of here as well, if you can grab hold of a copy of the original album. I don't know if it's been put out in expanded form. I'm guessing it must have been. Most of those big albums from the 70s and 80s have been put out in expanded form these days. If it is, that might be what it has been. That might be quite interesting. But yeah, it's a great album. Is it a Van Halen album? Is it a Sammy Hagar album? I think it's a perfect blend of the two, because you can tell, obviously, as soon as it starts, that it's Van Halen, but then as soon as Sammy Hagar starts, you can tell it's slightly different to the stuff from before. So is it possible to like both? Of course it is. It's possible to like bread and cheese, isn't it? But for me, I prefer the Sammy Hagar version of Van Halen, and this is a great album from 1986, which is still well worth listening to today.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, as it will help the channel to grow. See you soon.